The military transport plane touched down at Dover Air Force Base with a thud that echoed through the cargo hold. Inside, among the returning soldiers and equipment, sat a German shepherd named Rex. His dark brown eyes stared blankly ahead, showing no recognition of his surroundings. The once proud military working dog had become a shadow of his former self. Rex had served 3 tours in Afghanistan alongside his handler, Staff Sergeant Michael Torres. Together, they had saved countless lives by detecting explosives and clearing paths for troops. Rex's nose had found over 40 improvised explosive devices, making him one of the most successful bomb detection dogs in his unit. But that success came with a price neither dog nor handler could have anticipated. The turning point came during their final mission. Rex and Torres were leading a convoy through a narrow mountain pass when Rex suddenly stopped and sat down, his trained signal for danger ahead. Torres immediately called for a halt, but before the convoy could retreat, enemy fire erupted from the rocky cliffs above. In the chaos that followed, Torres was struck by shrapnel and fell unconscious. Rex stayed by his handler's side throughout the firefight, refusing to leave even when other soldiers tried to pull him away. When medics finally reached Torres, they found Rex lying protectively over his handler's body, blood matting his fur from minor wounds he had sustained while shielding Torres from debris. Torres survived the attack but was critically injured. He was evacuated to a military hospital in Germany, while Rex was left behind with the unit. For days, the dog waited at the base perimeter, watching every helicopter that came and went, searching for his missing partner. The other soldiers tried to comfort him, but Rex would not eat, would not respond to commands, and showed no interest in working with a new handler. When the decision was made to retire Rex due to his deteriorating condition, he was shipped back to the United States. The flight was difficult for everyone involved. Rex, who had once been calm and focused during transport, now panted heavily and shook uncontrollably. The stress of separation from Torres had triggered what military veterinarians recognized as canine post-traumatic stress disorder. At Dover Air Force Base, Rex was transferred to the Walter Reed Military Medical Center's veterinary facility. The staff there had experience with traumatized military animals, but Rex's case proved particularly challenging. Dr. Sarah Chen, the head veterinarian, noted that Rex exhibited classic symptoms of severe PTSD, hypervigilance, aggressive outbursts, withdrawal from human contact, and complete refusal to perform any of his trained tasks. "He's lost his purpose," Dr. Chen explained to her team during their first meeting about Rex. Military working dogs are bred and trained to serve. When that connection is severed traumatically, some never recover. The initial attempts to rehabilitate Rex followed standard protocols. Professional dog trainers worked with him daily, trying to re-establish basic obedience and trust. They used positive reinforcement, attempted to recreate controlled versions of his previous work environment, and gradually introduced new handlers who might form a bond with him. Nothing worked. Rex remained isolated in his kennel, emerging only for necessary medical examinations. When handlers approached, he would retreat to the far corner, his body language clearly communicating his desire to be left alone. The once confident dog who had fearlessly led soldiers through dangerous terrain now cowered at unexpected sounds. Weeks turned into months, and Rex's condition showed no improvement. The military brass began discussing difficult options. Some suggested euthanasia, arguing that the dog's quality of life had deteriorated beyond recovery. Others pushed for continued treatment, believing that time might eventually heal his psychological wounds. The debate reached Colonel James Morrison, who oversaw the military working dog program. Morrison had worked with war dogs for over 20 years and had seen many cases of canine PTSD, but none as severe as Rex's. He made the decision to give Rex one final chance at a specialized facility before considering more drastic measures. That facility was the Warrior Canine Connection in Virginia, a rehabilitation center that had developed innovative approaches to treating traumatized military dogs. The center was run by former military personnel who understood both the value of these animals and the complexity of their psychological trauma. When Rex arrived at the center, he was assigned to a team led by Dr. Mark Stevens, a former Army veterinarian who had transitioned to civilian practice specializing in animal trauma. Dr. Stevens took one look at Rex's file and knew they were dealing with an extreme case. "This dog has been through hell," he told his staff during their briefing. "He's not just traumatized by combat, he's grieving the loss of his handler and his sense of purpose. We need to approach this differently than our usual protocols." The staff at Warrior Canine Connection had developed a reputation for taking on the cases other facilities couldn't handle. They combined traditional veterinary medicine with innovative therapy techniques, often involving the dogs in programs designed to help veterans with their own PTSD recovery. The theory was that helping humans could give the dogs a new sense of purpose while healing their own psychological wounds. Rex was initially housed in a quiet section of the facility, away from the main activity areas. The staff gave him space to decompress while carefully observing his behavior patterns. They noted that he was particularly sensitive to loud noises and sudden movements, often hiding under his elevated bed when other dogs barked or when maintenance equipment operated nearby. Dr. Stevens assigned Rex's primary care to his most experienced handler, Maria Rodriguez. Rodriguez had worked with traumatized animals for 15 years and had a particular gift for reading canine body language and emotional states. She began spending time simply sitting near Rex's kennel, not attempting to interact, just being present. "Trust is the foundation of everything," Rodriguez explained to newer staff members. "Rex has lost faith in humans. Before we can help him heal, we need to prove that we're safe, that we're not going to abandon him like he feels his handler did." The process was painfully slow. For the first 2 weeks, Rex barely acknowledged Rodriguez's presence. She would sit outside his kennel for hours, sometimes reading aloud, sometimes just maintaining a calm, peaceful presence. Gradually, Rex began to show subtle signs of interest. His ears would perk up slightly when she spoke, and he would occasionally glance in her direction. The first breakthrough came during Rodriguez's 3rd week with Rex. She was sitting beside his kennel as usual when a thunderstorm struck the area. The loud crashes of thunder sent Rex into a panic. He pressed himself against the back wall of his kennel, trembling violently. Without thinking, Rodriguez began speaking to him in a calm, steady voice. "It's okay, boy. You're safe. I'm right here with you. These are just clouds making noise. No danger, just noise." For the first time since arriving at the facility, Rex looked directly at Rodriguez. Their eyes met for just a moment before he looked away, but it was progress. From that day forward, their relationship began to slowly develop. Rodriguez started bringing Rex small treats, placing them near the front of his kennel without forcing interaction. She began calling him by name and celebrating small victories, when he ate his full meal, when he came to the front of the kennel, when he didn't retreat immediately upon her approach. Other staff members remained skeptical about Rex's prospects. His case file was filled with failed attempts at rehabilitation, and his behavior showed little overall improvement. The dog still refused to work with anyone else and showed no interest in the activities that engaged other dogs at the facility. Dr. Stevens found himself under increasing pressure from his superiors to make a determination about Rex's future. The facility had limited resources, and keeping a dog for months without significant progress was difficult to justify. He knew that if Rex didn't show substantial improvement soon, the decision would be made to either transfer him to a less intensive care facility or consider euthanasia. The pressure intensified when Rex had a serious setback during his 8th week at the facility. A new volunteer accidentally dropped a metal food bowl near his kennel, creating a loud clanging sound. Rex's reaction was immediate and violent. He launched himself against the kennel door, barking and snarling with an intensity that frightened everyone present. It took hours for him to calm down, and he refused to eat for 2 days afterward. "Maybe we're prolonging his suffering," Dr. Stevens confided to Rodriguez after the incident. "Maybe the kindest thing would be to let him go peacefully." Rodriguez wasn't ready to give up. She had seen something in Rex's eyes during that thunderstorm, a flicker of the dog he had once been. She requested permission to try one more approach, extended daily sessions outside the kennel environment, in a controlled setting where Rex might feel less trapped and more able to begin healing. Dr. Stevens agreed to give them one final month. If Rex showed no significant improvement by then, they would have to accept that his trauma was too severe to overcome. Rodriguez knew she was working against time, but she also knew that somewhere inside the broken dog before her was the brave, loyal companion who had saved so many lives in Afghanistan. The real challenge would be finding a way to reach that dog before time ran out. Rodriguez decided to completely change her approach with Rex. Instead of continuing to work within the confines of the traditional kennel system, she requested permission to move their sessions to a quiet outdoor area behind the main facility building. The space was enclosed by high fencing but offered more room and natural elements that might help Rex feel less confined. The first outdoor session was scheduled for early morning when the facility was quietest. Rodriguez arrived to find Rex pacing in his kennel, a behavior he had developed during particularly stressful periods. She approached slowly, speaking in the same calm voice she had used during the thunderstorm. "Good morning, Rex. We're going to try something different today. How does that sound?" Rex stopped pacing and looked at her, his ears slightly forward, a small but encouraging sign of engagement. Rodriguez opened the kennel door carefully, giving Rex the choice to come out on his own rather than forcing the interaction. She attached a long, lightweight lead to his collar and waited. For several minutes, Rex remained at the back of his kennel. Rodriguez continued talking to him, describing what they would do outside, how the space was safe and enclosed. Finally, Rex took a tentative step toward the door. Then, another. Within 10 minutes, he had emerged from the kennel for the first time in weeks. The walk to the outdoor area was slow and careful. Rex jumped at every small sound, a bird taking flight, the distant sound of a car door closing, even the rustling of leaves in the breeze. But he kept walking, staying close to Rodriguez's side. When they reached the outdoor enclosure, Rex immediately sought out a corner where he could position himself with his back to two fences, giving him clear sightlines in all directions. Rodriguez sat down several feet away and simply waited. She had learned that patience was crucial with traumatized animals. Forcing interaction or rushing the process often resulted in setbacks that took weeks to overcome. Instead, she allowed Rex to set the pace for their relationship. During that first outdoor session, Rex gradually began to relax. The natural environment seemed to ease some of his anxiety. He started sniffing the ground, investigating scents in a way he hadn't done since arriving at the facility. When a butterfly landed nearby, Rex watched it with what Rodriguez recognized as curiosity rather than fear. These outdoor sessions became a daily routine. Each morning, Rodriguez would collect Rex and bring him to their special area. Gradually, he began to show more confidence. He would explore different areas of the enclosure, roll in the grass, and even play briefly with a tennis ball Rodriguez brought along. But, despite these improvements, Rex still showed no interest in working with other handlers or performing any of his former duties. Dr. Stevens observed several of their sessions and admitted that while Rex seemed happier with Rodriguez, he was still far from being a functional military working dog. The breakthrough they had all been hoping for came from an unexpected source. Jennifer Walsh, a civilian nurse who volunteered at the facility on weekends, had been watching Rex's progress with interest. Walsh worked at a nearby VA hospital and had extensive experience with veterans suffering from PTSD. She often helped with the facility's therapy programs where recovered military dogs worked with veterans struggling with their own trauma. Walsh approached Rodriguez one Saturday morning with an unusual request. "I'd like to try something with Rex, if you're willing. I think there might be a piece of his puzzle we're missing." Walsh explained that she had been researching Rex's military service record and had discovered something interesting about his original training. Rex had been trained not just as a bomb detection dog, but as part of a specialized K9 unit that used specific code words and hand signals unique to their team. These commands were different from standard military dog commands and were designed to be understood only by Rex's unit members. What if Rex isn't just traumatized by losing his handler? Walsh suggested. What if he's confused because no one here speaks his language? Rodriguez was intrigued but skeptical. How would we even find out what those commands were? His handler is still recovering in a military hospital in Texas, and Rex's unit was disbanded after their last deployment. Walsh smiled. "I've been doing some detective work. I contacted the VA hospital where Staff Sergeant Torres is receiving treatment. He's been asking about Rex constantly. When I explained what we were trying to do, he was eager to help. Torres had indeed been wondering about his canine partner's fate. Despite his own serious injuries and ongoing recovery, he had been trying to get information about Rex through official military channels. When Walsh reached out, he immediately agreed to provide whatever information might help. Through a series of phone calls, Torres provided Walsh with a list of the specialized commands his unit had used with Rex. Some were in English, but others were phrases in Pashto, the local Afghan language, that the team had adopted for security reasons. The theory was that if enemy fighters overheard commands being given to military dogs, they wouldn't understand the foreign language. Rex's alert command was Hawazder, Torres explained over the phone to Walsh. It means be careful in Pashto. When he detected explosives, we would tell him Rastan, which means stop. And, when he did good work, we would praise him with Der, meaning very good. Torres also provided other commands related to searching, staying alert, and standing down. He explained that their unit had developed this system during their first deployment when they realized that enemy fighters were learning to recognize standard English dog commands. Walsh shared this information with Rodriguez and Dr. Stevens, who agreed it was worth trying. They decided to test the theory during Rex's next outdoor session. Rodriguez practiced the pronunciations with Torres over the phone until she felt confident she could deliver the commands clearly. The next morning, Rodriguez brought Rex to their usual outdoor space. After allowing him to settle into his routine exploration of the area, she positioned herself where Rex could see her clearly. In a calm, confident voice, she spoke the first Pashto command. Hawazder, Rex. The response was immediate and dramatic. Rex's entire body language changed. His ears snapped to attention, his posture straightened, and, for the first time since his arrival at the facility, he looked directly at Rodriguez with what could only be described as recognition and anticipation. Rodriguez felt her heart racing but forced herself to remain calm. She tried another command, one that Torres had said was used to praise Rex for good work. Door, Rex. Door. Rex's tail began to wag, the first time anyone at the facility had seen this behavior. He took several steps toward Rodriguez, his movements confident and purposeful rather than the hesitant, fearful approach they had grown accustomed to. Dr. Stevens, who had been observing from a distance, could hardly believe what he was seeing. The transformation in Rex was remarkable. The dog who had been unreachable for months was suddenly alert, engaged, and showing clear signs of recognition and excitement. Over the following days, Rodriguez worked with Rex using the specialized commands Torres had provided. Each session revealed more of the dog's original personality. Rex began responding to commands for sitting, staying, and searching. When Rodriguez used the Pashto phrase for good job, Rex would approach her with confidence, even accepting gentle petting for the first time. The most significant breakthrough came when Rodriguez decided to test Rex's original bomb detection training using the specialized commands. She worked with Dr. Stevens to set up a controlled exercise using training materials that simulated explosive materials. These were the same types of training aids Rex would have worked with during his military service. Using the Pashto commands Torres had taught them, Rodriguez directed Rex through the search exercise. The results were extraordinary. Rex moved through the exercise with the precision and focus of his former military days. When he detected the training material, he immediately sat and looked back at Rodriguez, his trained alert behavior. Rastan, Rex, Rodriguez called out, using the command for stop that Torres had taught her. Rex held his position perfectly, waiting for further instruction. When Rodriguez praised him with Der, Rex's entire demeanor showed pride and satisfaction. For the first time since his trauma, Rex looked like the accomplished military working dog he had once been. Word of Rex's remarkable improvement spread quickly through the facility. Staff members who had written off his chances for recovery were amazed by the transformation. Dr. Stevens documented everything carefully, knowing that Rex's case could change how they approached other traumatized military working dogs. But, perhaps the most significant development came when Walsh suggested they arrange a video call between Rex and his former handler. Torres was now well enough to sit up and speak, though he was still dealing with significant physical limitations from his injuries. The video call was arranged for a Wednesday afternoon. Rex was brought into a quiet office where a laptop had been set up. When Torres's face appeared on the screen, Rex's reaction was immediate and emotional. He whined, pawed at the screen, and pressed his nose against the laptop display. "Hey there, boy," Torres said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've missed you so much." Rex's excitement was overwhelming. He barked, the first vocalization he had made at the facility that wasn't fear-based. His tail wagged so hard his entire body moved with emotion. When Torres began speaking to him in their familiar mix of English and Pashto commands, Rex responded as if no time had passed at all. "Hawazder, Rex. You taking care of everyone there?" Rex sat immediately, his focus entirely on the screen. The connection between dog and handler was still strong, unbroken despite months of separation and trauma. The video call lasted only 15 minutes, but its impact on Rex was profound. In the days that followed, he showed continued improvement. He began interacting positively with other staff members, started eating with enthusiasm, and showed interest in activities beyond his sessions with Rodriguez. Dr. Stevens realized they had discovered something crucial about treating canine PTSD. It wasn't enough to address the trauma, they needed to help the dogs reconnect with their sense of purpose and identity. For military working dogs like Rex, that identity was intimately tied to their training, their commands, and their relationship with their handlers. Rex's story was far from over, but this breakthrough had opened a door that everyone had thought was permanently closed. The dog everyone had given up on was showing them that healing was possible, even after the deepest trauma, when approached with understanding, patience, and the right key to unlock their trust. With Rex showing remarkable improvement through the use of his specialized commands, Dr. Stevens and his team faced a new challenge: how to transition Rex from rehabilitation to a meaningful future. The dog was clearly healing, but military regulations prevented him from returning to active duty due to his age and previous trauma. They needed to find Rex a purpose that would honor his service while providing him with the stability he needed to continue his recovery. Jennifer Walsh proposed an innovative solution that would change not only Rex's life but also influence how military working dogs would be treated for years to come. She suggested that Rex could become part of a new therapy program at the VA hospital where she worked. The program would pair retired military working dogs with veterans suffering from PTSD, creating a unique support system where both human and canine veterans could help each other heal. The concept wasn't entirely new, but using a dog with Rex's specific background and training would be groundbreaking. Walsh believed that Rex's own experience with trauma would make him particularly effective at working with veterans who were struggling with similar issues. The shared experience of service and trauma could create bonds that traditional therapy dogs couldn't achieve. Dr. Stevens was initially hesitant about the proposal. Rex had made tremendous progress, but he was still not the stable, predictable animal that most therapy programs required. There were concerns about how Rex might react to crowded hospital environments, unexpected noises, or the emotional intensity of working with traumatized veterans. To test the feasibility of Walsh's proposal, they arranged for Rex to visit the VA hospital in a controlled setting. The plan was to introduce him gradually to the hospital environment while maintaining the safety protocols he had grown comfortable with at the rehabilitation facility. The first hospital visit was scheduled for a quiet Sunday morning when patient activity was minimal. Rodriguez accompanied Rex, using the specialized commands that had proven so effective. The moment they entered the hospital, Rex's behavior changed. His military training kicked in, and he moved through the corridors with the alertness and purpose of his combat days. What surprised everyone was Rex's reaction to the hospital itself. Rather than showing anxiety about the unfamiliar environment, he seemed to recognize it as a place of importance. His posture was confident, his movements deliberate. When they passed the rooms where veteran patients were staying, Rex would pause and look toward the doors with interest rather than fear. Dr. Amanda Foster, the VA hospital's chief psychologist, observed Rex's first visit with fascination. She had worked with therapy animals before, but she had never seen a dog demonstrate such clear understanding of his environment and role. "He knows he's in a hospital," Dr. Foster observed to Walsh. Look at how he moves, he's being careful not to make noise, he's aware of the medical equipment, he's even adjusting his pace to match the quiet atmosphere. This isn't learned behavior from his current training. This is military discipline. The team decided to proceed with a trial program. Rex would spend several hours each week at the VA hospital, working with carefully selected veterans who had expressed interest in animal-assisted therapy. The program would be closely monitored, and Rex would be removed immediately if he showed any signs of stress or regression. The first veteran Rex worked with was Marine Corporal David Kim, who had lost his leg to an IED explosion in Afghanistan. Kim had been struggling with severe PTSD and depression, and traditional therapy approaches had shown limited success. When Walsh introduced Rex to Kim, neither human nor dog was sure what to expect. Kim was sitting in a wheelchair in the hospital's therapy garden when Rodriguez brought Rex outside. The veteran took one look at the German Shepherd and immediately recognized the bearing and alertness of a military working dog. "He's been deployed, hasn't he?" Kim asked, studying Rex's movements and posture. When Walsh explained Rex's background and his service with Staff Sergeant Torres, Kim's demeanor changed completely. For the first time in months, he showed genuine interest and engagement. Can I give him a command?" Kim asked hesitantly. Rodriguez looked at Walsh, who nodded encouragingly. Kim called Rex over using a standard military dog command, and Rex responded immediately. The connection was instantaneous. Here was someone who spoke his language, who understood his training and his service. Over the following hour, Kim worked with Rex using various commands, some in English and others in Pashto that Walsh had taught him. Rex's response to Kim was different from his interactions with the rehabilitation staff. There was a mutual recognition between two veterans who had served in the same theater of war. Kim later told Dr. Foster that the session with Rex was the first time since his injury that he had felt truly understood. "He gets it," Kim said simply. "He knows what it's like over there. He knows what we've been through." The success of Rex's first therapy session led to expanded trials with other veterans. Each interaction was unique, but there were common elements that surprised the medical staff. Veterans who had been resistant to traditional therapy approaches showed immediate engagement when working with Rex. The dog's presence seemed to provide a bridge between their military experiences and their current struggles with civilian life. Rex's own healing accelerated through his work with the veterans. Having a clear purpose again, helping others rather than just surviving, restored much of his former confidence. He began sleeping better, eating more enthusiastically, and showing interest in activities beyond his therapy work. One of the most significant developments came when Rex was introduced to Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, a veteran who had served as a military dog handler in Iraq. Santos had lost her own military working dog to an IED attack and had been unable to form emotional connections with people or animals since returning home. When Santos met Rex, the recognition between them was immediate and profound. Santos looked at Rex's stance, his alert expression, and his careful attention to his surroundings, and she saw exactly what he was, a warrior who had served with honor and suffered for it. "You're one of us, aren't you, boy?" Santos whispered, kneeling down to Rex's level. Rex approached Santos with more confidence than he had shown anyone except Rodriguez. When Santos began speaking to him using the hand signals and commands she had used with her own military working dog, Rex responded as if he had been working with her for years. The breakthrough for both veteran and dog came when Santos broke down crying while telling Rex about losing her canine partner. Rex, showing an intuition that surprised everyone present, approached Santos and gently laid his head in her lap, the first truly affectionate gesture he had made toward anyone other than Rodriguez. "He understands," Santos said through her tears. "He knows what it's like to lose your partner." Dr. Foster documented that session as a turning point not just for Rex and Santos, but for the entire therapy program. They had discovered that Rex wasn't just helping veterans heal, he was healing himself through service, returning to his fundamental nature as a working dog with a mission. The program's success attracted attention from military medical officials and veteran advocacy groups. Rex's story became a case study in innovative approaches to treating both canine and human PTSD. His recovery challenged assumptions about the permanence of trauma-related damage and opened new possibilities for rehabilitating military working dogs. 6 months after his first hospital visit, Rex had worked with dozens of veterans. His own transformation was remarkable. He had regained much of his former confidence and purpose while developing new skills specific to therapy work. He learned to read human emotions with extraordinary accuracy and to provide exactly the type of comfort each veteran needed. The program expanded to include other rehabilitated military working dogs, but Rex remained its flagship success story. His journey from a broken, traumatized animal to a healing therapy dog provided hope for both veterans and animals suffering from war's psychological wounds. Perhaps the most meaningful moment in Rex's new career came when Staff Sergeant Torres was finally well enough to travel. The reunion between handler and dog was arranged at the VA hospital, allowing Torres to see firsthand how Rex had transformed his trauma into service to others. Torres watched as Rex worked with a group of veterans in the therapy garden, moving confidently between patients, providing comfort and companionship with professional skill and genuine care. When the session ended and Rex was released to greet his former handler, the joy of their reunion was witnessed by patients and staff alike. "I'm proud of you, boy," Torres said, embracing his former partner. "You found a way to keep serving, didn't you?" Rex's story didn't end with his recovery, it began a new chapter. The program he helped establish became a model for similar initiatives across the country. Military working dogs who might once have been retired to quiet lives or euthanized due to trauma now had a pathway to continued service and purpose. Dr. Stevens often used Rex as an example when training other rehabilitation specialists. "We learned that healing isn't about erasing trauma," he would explain. "It's about finding ways to transform that experience into something meaningful." Rex taught us that even the deepest wounds can become sources of strength when approached with patience, understanding, and purpose. Rex continued his therapy work for several more years, touching the lives of hundreds of veterans while completing his own healing journey. His legacy extended far beyond his individual story, changing how society understood and treated the psychological wounds of war, for both human and canine veterans. The war dog everyone had given up on had become the teacher who showed them that recovery was possible, that service could continue in new forms, and that sometimes the greatest healing comes from helping others heal. Rex had found his way home not to a place, but to a purpose, proving that even the most broken warriors could rise again when given the right support, understanding, and opportunity to serve.